Week number 8 of the Iowa high school football season. We have arrived at the final week of the regular season, Jason, and yeah, hard to believe we're already here. I know you say it all the time, but yeah, these 8 or 9 weeks are truly some of the fastest of the whole year.
Everybody always talks about the fastest 2 minutes in all of sports being the Kentucky Derby. These 8 weeks of high school football, you're so excited. All the prep, some schools from June, August 1st through middle of October. It's just here and then it's gone. You just try to make the most of it.
Last week, the Bears lost to Wilton 39-20 at the Little Rose Bowl. This was a game the Bears were leading at one point and were certainly very much in coming out of the half. What did you like, or what did you take away from this past week, Jason?
Man, the fight is there.
Yeah.
West Branch really this year, it's not an excuse. It's just the reality of this. Injuries have, when you've got numbers that aren't, you know, at small schools, the depth is just not there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you find injuries, West Branch has been lucky through the years to not really have years of season on the brink of a lot of injuries. They've been on the brink, but they've never had them. Well, this year, West Branch, the injury bug is kind of hit them, and it's really hit them up front on the offensive line where you don't want it to hit, because that's the most integral part of a football team. But when you look at the Wilton game, even with that, fighting through those injuries, the fight, man, West Branch was leading against the undefeated second-ranked team, almost all seniors, 17 seniors starting almost both ways for that team. West Branch was beating them. And then, just something here, something there. You make mistakes against a team like that, they're going to bounce on it and they're going to make you pay. And that's just kind of what they did. But the Bears never gave up the fight all the way in the game.
No, and that's what I really liked. I think the Bears are starting to, ramp up at the right time. We still have a lot of work to do, as we'll talk about here, to get into the playoffs. I like that we're kind of ramping up at the right point, but yeah, the injuries kind of put a damper on that. So, hopefully we get some good news there through practice this week into the game on Friday.
Again, West Branch had the one quarter kind of been a bugaboo this year. The third quarter, I mean, it's 6-0 after one. Wilton's ahead. West Branch gets a lead 7-6 in the second. Wilton takes it, the lead 12-7 into halftime. West Branch gets the ball in the beginning of the second half, does not score. Wilton wins the third quarter 13-0. It goes from West Branch leading 7-6, all of a sudden it's 25-6, just like that. And then the fourth quarter, West Branch actually wins the quarter 13-12. And that's including a late touchdown with about 38 seconds to go in the game by Wilton. So again, the fight is there. This team is on the edge of doing some great things, but injuries and little things here are kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, hurting the progress.
Moving on to this week, the Bears traveled to Durant to take on the Wildcats to close the regular season. Before we get into different playoff scenarios and such, Jason, let's talk about Durant. They come in at 1-6 on the season, with their lone win being over Columbus Catholic in week 2. However, much like the Bears, they've had you look at it, they've had a pretty darn tough schedule this season. Currently undefeated Lisbon, Regina, Wilton, Beckman, Cascade. I mean, our whole district. Much like I said, much like West Branch, it really hasn't been easy sledding for the Wildcats so far.
Yeah, when you're in this district, look, one of the few districts that there are a couple 1A districts with 2 teams ranked. It just happens to be one here in Eastern Iowa that Durant and West Branch are both a part of. And unfortunately for Durant, they have maybe one of the youngest lineups in all of 1A. Their running back, Tate McKinley, started last year as a freshman. I think he had 15 carries, something like 50 yards against West Branch last year as a sophomore. West Branch won that game 42-0 on a cold, rainy night at the Little Rose Bowl. I mean, this is a tough kid. He was a wrestler. His dad is on the coaching staff. I had a good chat with him before the game last year, and this kid is not going to shy away from challenge. And Durant wants nothing more than you talked about those playoff scenarios that we'll get to them, but here's one part of that. Durant would want nothing more, A, just to beat West Branch, but B, to do it in a way that knocks West Branch out of the playoffs. which is a possibility, and we'll get there.
Who are some of those players you want to highlight from Durant? Some of those guys you're gonna just kind of be calling their names all Friday night.
Obviously, at McKinley. I mean,
Yeah,
we've already
right.
mentioned him. Quarterback's Cannon Davis. By the way, remember I talked about youth? Freshman quarterback. Cannon Davis is a freshman starting quarterback for the Wildcats. Has 590 passing yards. McKinley is the only guy on the team with over 100 yards rushing. He's got 378. Trying to do this from memory. I think it is 378 and 2 touchdowns. And then the leading receiver was Colby Gast. Wrote him down at 27 receptions, 328 yards, junior. The second leading receiver is Gus Toma, a cousin of West Branch's athletic trainer, Scott Toma. He has 8 catches, 77 yards, and then Josh Peel, another senior. So there are only 2 seniors from the offensive standpoint that are statistical guys. But then you look at the defense, there's one guy that's going to stand out. I like Colby Gast. Talked about him. He leads the team with solo tackles. I think it was 24. A sophomore, another kid has 22 solo tackles. You're talking guys that are they're the only guys in on the plays. Obviously, when you're giving up a lot of yardage and unfortunately a lot of points on the scoreboard to other teams, there's going to be guys in the back end of the defense getting action. But when they do, they're making plays. But the McKinley, number 5, that's the guy you're going to keep your eye on. He's a pretty special player. Even if a team's 1-6, he is a special athlete that maybe on a lot of teams would be even more special.
Yeah, going to be. I'm sure we'll think of this after the game Friday too. But going to be interesting to see how they progress in the off season and what they're looking like next year too.
Yeah, and they've already scheduled a week 9 game with Wapello. 2 teams not going to be. They aren't expecting to be in the playoffs. I actually did some work here, and unless I'm wrong, which I can admit it if I am, Durant has a very slight chance of still making it in. If they were to win Friday night over West Branch by 17 points or more, and Beckman Catholic defeats Cascade by 17 points or more, guess what we have for number 4 spot? We have a 3-way tie. Then it goes to points. And all 3 teams would be tied at 0. It's an odd thing, but I don't think unless I did the math wrong.
Yeah, I mean it's a plausible option, right? So yeah, let's just chat about these playoff scenarios because it obviously affects the Bears, but affects Wildcats too, and other teams in the district. Okay, so like at this moment, the Bears are not in, but their mission is simple: win and in. Correct? No matter how many points,
you're in. No matter how. Win by 1, you're in. Win by 39, you're in. It doesn't matter as long as West Branch wins. They will be playing in the Class 1A postseason next week.
Yep. And if the Bears do not win, what's going to have to happen for us to play next week?
Cole Mather and the Beckman Trailblazers are the Bears' best friend on Friday night. If West Branch lose, they need Beckman to beat Cascade on Friday night. Other than that, there is no other. West Branch is going to be in. If Cascade loses, West Branch is in.
Okay, just straight money line, no spread, no points, no nothing.
Nothing. That's it.
Okay.
If West Branch wins, they're in. If Cascade loses, they're in. Okay. So it's West Branch is in I guess, finally in an enviable position. I can speak for once this season.
Okay. And then you kind of talked through it there, but just to recap. If Durant wins and they win by 17 points or more,
they're going to need some help with the math.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm going to let the kids at MIT, aka the Iowa High School Athletic Association, kind of figure that part of it out.
Okay.
It's going to be close.
Yeah. Well,
close.
Hopefully for the Bears, it doesn't come to that. Just win and we're in. It's as simple as that.
That is the idea here.
Yep. And I like that. After the game last week, Coach Nestor put it pretty simply. He's like, look, our playoffs start next week against Durant. We have to just keep winning out. if we want to make it far.
Yeah. And I think, highlighting West Branch from last week a little bit more, we talk about injuries, but I think something we can point out is, some of the key things for West Branch. You always know about Cooper Gates and Tate France, their strong play on defense, but a guy that doesn't get mentioned quite a bit, but has done something very selfless for West Branch to help this team out, Lincoln Neighbor. Before week 7, he had played offense. He had played slot receiver, tight end, played a skill position. But the Bears in time of need look at a guy that's 6'3", 205 pounds, very strong, very quick kid, actually. He's a 51 second, 400-meter runner. And if you know anything about that, that's not slow. Probably puts him in the top 8 at state this year. But they said, hey, can you play line for us? Had never played it in high school. He said yes. And he did a pretty doggone good job. West Branch has had a history of kids that have done the same thing through the years. Reese Trepanier, Cale Fetterland, Billy Freese, and a guy close to your heart and in your class, Mitch Moon, went from tight end to center and did a really good job. So for West Branch to be successful through the years, and especially this year, you got to, you roll with the punches and you find ways to win. And Lincoln Neighbor, I think, is helping this team become a better football team in a time of need.
Yeah, and I think just real quick on that, I think that's, kind of speaks to maybe the culture that we've had at West Branch for a long time of, developing athletes and selfless athletes, ones that are able to be flexible in how they're helping the team, both on and off the field, but also, be willing to be like, you know what? Yep. Look, hey, you need my help there? Great. I'm going to go play that. I'm going to go study that. I'm going to go do the best I can at that position. And even if I'm going from a all eyes on me, I get my name in the paper from catching balls and scoring touchdowns to just, being on, not just being on the line, but being on the line to where that's, from a visibility perspective, it's not as great. I think that just speaks to the character of the young men that we have in West Branch.
Everybody can look at a chalkboard and see what's in chalk, right? And they can do things that are written out for them in chalk. But not everybody can, you don't always see what's behind the chalk when you erase it. That's what the selfless part of football programs are. The guys that you don't see all the time doing kind of things like that. But Lincoln Neighbor is doing something like that right now. And this football team is probably is going to be the better for it. And in life, character, it's a character thing. And I think he's done it selflessly. And this team kind of been the MASH 407 7th unit. And I hope they get through tomorrow night.
Well, if you can't make it to Durant on Friday, be sure to tune in to the Bearcast, where we'll have the game for you, audio only. Jason will be joined by junior high head coach Randy Sexton on color. Jason, you've done a few games with Barney so far this season. How's he doing?
Tell you what, Barney paints a picture. He's got such a wonderful personality, and he's a great football coach. He's a great guy. But he paints the picture kind of like John Hirschman. We had him as well. They're football coaches. So I tell you about a play. They paint the picture of the play. They give you the X and the O to make it even to give you football 101 so you can understand it and see the picture in just a different way. It's like going from black and white to AI color. So these guys, Barney is, and Randy, whichever you call him, it's your choice. He is great to have around, and he just lightens up the program. And maybe looking forward to having him in the pregame as well. I think we're going to talk to him, interview him, and talk about the season that was for the junior high team. That 7th grade football team finished undefeated. The 8th grade football team finished on a winning note as well up at Monticello this week.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Kickoff 7 p.m. Friday in Durant. Hopefully we'll be talking to you next week. Until then, go Bears.
Go Bears.